No, it's been definitely very difficult, and I'll say two key events. One, the collapse of Chase Bank, and that sort of panic it created in the market, the sort of sentiment towards banking. Here you have one of the fastest growing, most innovative, winning awards, banking a lot of SMEs and people across the entire divide collapsing. That definitely had a very negative impact in terms of flight to quality in terms of deposits. The other next big impact, then of course, then was interest rate capping, which was effected from September, which again, depending on one's asset liability mix and sort of banking focus, hits you hard on the liability side, hits you hard on the asset side, so it really narrows your net interest margins, which then of course has an impact on your profit. And so with those two issues and an election now in 2017, one can only assume 2017 will even be tougher, and especially with the full year impact of the capping. Because if one really looked at quarter four results versus quarter three, is when you get a sense of the impact of the capping, and now we'll see the full impact this year. Yeah, the impact definitely. You have to look at your underwriting standards, because again now with a cap and the lending cap that you can't even charge for risk, you can't charge for default. Yeah, and then taking into account our cost of funding, because apart from just deposits in the market, we already have commitments in terms of our bonds. We have DFI facilities with long-term facilities from other people, and a lot of those facilities are earning over 10% already. So now if you're constrained within the 14, you really have to even further tighten your underwriting standards to ensure that very, very, very little of any new lending you're doing goes bad. So the impact of that tightening has been reduced lending, because a lot of clients have not managed to qualify. They're going to go down. No. The uptake is not that. The standards are too tight. You think about the risk in doing a project today, the spread we can earn cannot compensate us for that risk. Yeah. So we're going to have a change in focus. We are still been growing our full service banking. We're still lending to corporates. We're doing trade finance. So it's to encourage other forms of lending, while also critically also focusing a lot on our non-funded income. Our non-funded income, which is part of our full service strategy, our full service banking strategy, has been predicated on one, putting in the new core banking system, which we put in the beginning of last year. Two, then building the products on it. So right now, as we speak, we're rolling out our debit cards, our MasterCards. We are in the final testings of our internet banking. And we're also looking at upgrading our mobile app. Okay? So really, what I'd call hygiene factors, bringing us at par with some of the top banks in the market. Because again, we are late into the commercial banking space. So that when we lure you into our business, you don't then complain about, oh, but I can't transact like this, or I can't do that. Yeah, we are at par with everybody else. The other key focus for us this year also is on the subsidiaries. So again, remember, the subsidiaries were set up, one, to focus on diversified areas within the real estate value chain, but also to generate non-funded income. And the big player for us this year is HFDI. We have two projects that should be completed, construction completion, by quarter four, which then, when we get the occupation certificate, only then can we book whatever sales we have done. So sales we've done from 2016 through into 2017, we'll be able to book them once we complete the projects. And that's where you carry a lot of work in progress on your balance sheet until completion. So you carry your work in progress on your balance sheet, you will carry deposits, customer deposits of customers, etc., but you cannot book until the project is completed. Okay? So we are looking at HFDI contributing much more than it ever has to the group profit this year. But again, that will be in the second half. Our first half is going to be dismal. various thoughts that I will not talk about here, but I'll just ask a few questions, okay? And like you correctly say, we have 41 odd banks in the market today. Depositor sentiment towards banking is at its lowest. And so probably I'd say there are probably the top 10 that are comfortably still getting deposits. Although I was shocked to see one of the top 10, looking at the results, their deposits year on year actually dropped. So I don't know what that means, but let's assume there are 10. That leaves you with 31 others, scrambling for whatever else is left. Interest rate caps in terms of the floor for savings accounts has been set. So rate is no longer something to pull people from one bank to another. And again, if somebody offers you too much, you also get suspicious that they're having problems. Then you have the sort of slowdown in the industry, and we've seen the sort of NPL impacts coming through virtually across the board, and the impact that has on one's capital. Then we have IFRS 9 coming down the road from beginning of next year, which is going to make provisioning even tighter. So one's going to need even more capital to lend. And so the question I ask myself, out of those 30, how many are going to survive the next 2 years? There's more debit, mobile banking, is more your transactional tools, which are what we call hygiene factors. For us, it's definitely catch up, just catch up. And that was the investment we had to do. And that change, is about a 2.5 year process. We also took the decision to actually integrate 8 systems into one. So we just didn't roll out the core banking and then add more. We brought in 8 together. And that's why it took us a bit longer. But now we'll be able to reap the benefits of that investment. Yeah. There were certain other things we were putting in place, and we need to put those in place before we can actually, I would say, go full throttle. But our first focus in that whole digital space is going to be on our mobile app. And we're actually going through a whole revamp of our mobile app to relaunch it probably in Q3 of this year, which will now take us to the next level in terms of digital banking. So that I'd say would be the first of a series. Yes, we do have a digital banking roadmap, but not all of it will be achieved this year. No. One, we don't even have the funding for it right now. No, it is definitely tight. And of course, to answer also part of your question about the government borrowing, also we are not meeting our tax collection targets. Okay? And what we're also seeing, and we're going to even see more in this year, is the impact of the layoffs happening, for example, in the banking industry due to the capping. And so that is tax forgone by the government. So that situation, I believe, will even get tighter. But I think, and like is typical with any election year, unfortunately, yes, we're going to see a slowdown in some activities, especially medium to longer term activities. You'll see investors adopting a wait and see. For us already, the situation we're in anyway, there's not too much more that we can actually do, especially in terms of growth. Because like as I mentioned earlier, some of the margins for some of our products are not attractive. So we'll spend the year working on rolling out new products, designing new things for the future, improving customer service, improving efficiencies, managing costs, etc., collecting as much of our non-performing loans as we can. That will be our focus for this year. Yeah. Yeah. So when it comes to mortgage affordability, there are two sides of the equation. There's a supply side and affordability. And that's what we're addressing through HF Development and Investments as we continue developing more and more affordable homes. But also appreciating, identifying the land, doing the agreements, doing the master planning, getting the approvals. That's a year and a half. Doing your construction, another 2.5 years. Then doing the whole conveyancing thing can be another 2-3 years. So our setup, especially around land matters, is a very big bottleneck on the supply side. Big bottleneck. And not even to count the amount of corruption that goes on that some of us as an institution will not participate in. Then the other side is on the demand side. It is very risky running a mortgage, a long-term lending program on variable interest rates. And so what this market lacks, as opposed to maybe some of the more developed markets, is long-term, fixed, affordable funding instruments. Okay? And when we talk about long-term fixed, you can get a long-term fixed 15-year line to on-lend mortgages. But how much will that cost you? It'll cost you in today's world over 15%. So what do you lend it at? Okay? And that is where the government has to play its role. And again, in most advanced mortgage countries, the government has always been involved in at least setting up the environment, the framework, even maybe the initial seed capital, the funding. And we envision this all in the proposed National Housing Bill of 2011 that has never seen the light of day. And in there we talked about a national sort of like housing authority that would get a certain percentage of annual GDP during the budget as funding money. Then that is then on lent to designated providers in the market who are then given limits on how much you can on-lend it at. And the best example I'd like to give today to answer that question is corporate schemes, or like even what we're seeing now is civil servant schemes, or even with some of these parastatal schemes. These parastatals are placing, or these companies are placing deposits with us at below market rate, and then we on-lend it to their staff at an agreed markup. And the markup may be between 3 to 5%. So if you place your funds here at 0%, your staff will earn 3%, for example. On average in the market, we're seeing like with the civil servants, parastatals, they are paying between 3 to 5%. But these are funded schemes. And as long as you're an employee of that organization, and as long as those funds are with us at that rate, you're actually earning below market fixed interest mortgage. Now that's a solution we need to find for Wanjiko, to solve the problem. Then the uptake. Now you have affordable houses being developed. You have affordable long-term fixed money